Jack hadn't expected his space mission to end like this. He'd always dreamed of exploring the stars, but being stranded on an alien planet wasn't quite what he had imagined. The storm had hit suddenly, knocking his ship off course and forcing him to land in the dense, unknown forests of this strange world. With his communications damaged and no way to call for help, he was completely alone. As Jack wandered through the thick trees, he realized just how alien the place was. The trees were tall, their trunks thick and twisted. Unlike anything he had seen on Earth, strange glowing plants dotted the landscape, casting an eerie light through the dense fog. Every now and then, he would hear strange sounds in the distance, growls, whispers, and the crack of something heavy moving in the woods. Jack kept his hand on his blaster, but even he knew that in a place like this, a weapon was often more of a comfort than a solution. Hours had passed, and Jack was starting to feel the cold bite of the night air. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten in a while. He had lost track of time, but he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't survive out here alone for long. His only hope was to find shelter, maybe even a way to fix his ship, but he couldn't do that if he didn't find a safe place to rest. As he stumbled through the mist, a sudden rustling noise came from behind him. His heart skipped a beat, and he spun around, hand instinctively reaching for his blaster. But instead of an enemy or a wild creature, he found himself face to face with a creature he had never imagined. The creature was huge, easily the size of a bear, but with the body of a wolf. Its fur was a soft mix of dark browns and silvers that shimmered in the dim light. And its eyes glowed a faint yellow, almost as if the creature had its own internal light source. It was staring at Jack, its large frame tense and ready to strike. The creature's sharp teeth were visible as it bared its fangs, and Jack could feel the primal energy radiating from it. But instead of lunging, the creature simply stared, as if it were trying to understand Jack. Its ears twitched, as if listening for something. But Jack was too frozen in place to move. His heart pounded in his chest. It was the first time since landing that he had truly felt fear. Yet something about the creature's eyes seemed almost curious, not just threatening. "Easy there, big guy," Jack muttered under his breath, trying to keep his voice steady. He slowly lowered his blaster, not wanting to provoke it. "I'm not looking for a fight." The creature seemed to relax, just a little at his words, its stance softening. Jack cautiously took a step back, keeping his eyes on the creature. He had no idea what this alien was, but he knew it was probably his best chance at survival. If he could just find a way to communicate or make it understand he meant no harm. The creature let out a low growl, but it wasn't one of aggression. It was more like a soft rumble, almost like it was calling to him. Jack frowned. He wasn't sure what to do next. Should he run? Should he stay and try to make peace? His instincts told him that running wouldn't do any good on this planet. There were worse things out there, and he could feel it. Before he could make a decision, the creature took a cautious step toward him. Its large paws moved silently over the ground as it closed the distance between them. Jack stood still, trying not to make any sudden movements. To his surprise, the creature stopped just a few feet away from him, lowering its head and letting out a soft whine. Jack's eyes widened as the creature's expression seemed to soften. It wasn't threatening him. It wasn't even growling now. It was simply waiting. Jack took a deep breath, wasn't sure what was happening, but he had no other options. Slowly, he reached out a hand, his palm open, trying to show the creature he meant no harm. The creature sniffed the air, and then, almost hesitantly, nudged Jack's hand with its nose. It was warm, so warm that Jack could feel the heat radiating from its body even from where he stood. He hesitated, then gently stroked the creature's fur. To his surprise, it was soft, almost like the fur of an earth wolf, but smoother. Okay, I get it," Jack said softly, still unsure what was going on. "You're not going to eat me." The creature let out another low growl, but this time, it sounded almost like a purr. Jack chuckled nervously, feeling a strange sense of relief. He had no idea what this alien creature was, but it seemed like it wasn't interested in killing him, at least, not right now. Maybe it wasn't as dangerous as he had thought. The night was growing colder, and Jack's energy was running low. He looked around, spotting a small cave not far from where he stood. It looked like a good place to rest, at least for the night. Maybe he could figure out what to do next in the morning. The creature had started to walk in the direction of the cave as if it was leading him there. Jack hesitated, but then followed. He figured that even if the creature wasn't hostile, he'd need all the help he could get to survive. As he entered the cave, he noticed that it was warmer inside then. It was outside. The air had a strange, earthy scent, but it was far better than the freezing winds outside. The creature lay down near the entrance, its large body curled up. Jack set down his pack and unrolled his bedroll, not sure what to expect. Wasn't planning to sleep too deeply, but the warmth of the cave, combined with the creature's presence, seemed to make it easier to relax. He had no choice but to trust this alien creature, at least for tonight. He lay down on his bedroll, pulling his jacket tighter around him. The creature's soft growl filled the cave as it settled, and Jack closed his eyes, trying to forget how strange this whole situation was. He had shared a bedroll with an alien, a creature far different from anything he had ever encountered, and somehow felt safer than he had in hours. But as sleep began to take over, Jack had no idea that this moment, this strange encounter, would mark the beginning of something far more complex than he could have ever imagined. He had no idea that when he woke up, he would find something new on his body, something that would change everything. Jack awoke with the first light of dawn seeping through the entrance of the cave. The soft glow of the morning sun cast a warm hue over the rocky walls, and he stretched, groaning slightly as he shifted in his bedroll. He had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of the strange encounter with the alien wolf. Despite the unusual circumstances, the night had been surprisingly peaceful. The creature, whom he had now come to think of as Lyra, had remained still and quiet beside him, not once showing any sign of aggression. For a brief moment, Jack allowed himself to enjoy the warmth of the cave and the sense of safety it provided. Outside, the cold winds of the alien world howled, but here he felt secure. The creature had not only protected him, but it also seemed to form some sort of bond with him. Jack sat up and rubbed his face, still trying to shake off the haze of sleep. His fingers touched his skin, brushing over something strange. At first, he thought it was just the lingering effect of a dream, but when he looked down, he saw it clearly. There, on his forearm, was a mark. A symbol, glowing faintly as if carved into his skin. It was intricate and unfamiliar, like some kind of alien script or rune. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he stared at it, trying to understand what it was. Did she do this? Jack muttered to himself. His mind raced, thinking back to the night before. He couldn't remember anything unusual happening while they were sleeping. Sure, he had shared the warmth of his bedroll with Lyra, but nothing had felt out of the ordinary. There was no pain, no discomfort, just the strange sensation of warmth and comfort that had allowed him to drift off into sleep. The mark seemed to pulse slightly, its glow faint but steady. Jack reached out, tentatively touching the symbol. The moment his fingers made contact, a jolt of energy shot through him, like a small electric shock. He quickly pulled his hand back, startled by the sensation. The mark was still there, now feeling slightly warmer than before, but it didn't seem to hurt Jack. Took a deep breath and looked at Lyra, who was still resting near the cave entrance. She was curled up, her large wolf-like body, a picture of calmness. Her eyes were closed, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that she was aware of him, watching him from the corner of her eye. "Hey, Lyra," Jack called softly, not wanting to startle her. "Did you do this?" Lyra stirred, her ears twitching in response to his voice. She slowly opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. There was a quiet intelligence in those glowing yellow eyes, and Jack felt an odd sense of reassurance as he stared into them. Without moving, Lyra let out a low, almost inaudible growl. It wasn't threatening. In fact, it seemed almost like an acknowledgement. Jack's heart raced again as he realized that the creature might not just be some wild animal. There was something more to her, something intelligent, perhaps even sentient. Jack took a cautious step toward her, his mind spinning with questions. He wasn't sure if he should be afraid or grateful. Is this some kind of marking? What does it mean? Lyra slowly rose to her feet, her movements graceful and deliberate. She walked over to Jack, her massive form towering over him. As she approached, Jack instinctively stepped back, unsure of what to expect. But instead of attacking, Lyra stood in front of him, her head tilting slightly as if she was examining him. Jack felt a strange pull, like an invisible thread connecting him to her. The mark on his arm seemed to throb with each heartbeat, growing warmer. Could feel the energy of it like it was alive, and somehow it was linked to her. His heart raced faster, but he couldn't look away from Lyra's gaze. It was as if they were connected more than just by a shared moment of survival, but by something deeper. Something that neither of them could fully understand. The creature nudged him gently with her nose, and Jack flinched, startled by the contact. She had touched him before, but this felt different. The warmth of her body seemed to radiate through him, and for a moment, the mark on his arm pulsed again, its glow intensifying. "Okay? I get it," Jack whispered, his voice shaking. "You've marked me, haven't you?" Lyra gave a soft snort, as if amused by his realization, and then backed away. Jack watched as she circled him slowly, her glowing eyes never leaving him. The longer he stood there, the more he felt an undeniable connection. To the creature, she wasn't just some alien animals, she was something more, something he couldn't quite comprehend. Jack reached up to touch the mark once more, his fingers grazing the cool skin around it. As he did, another jolt of energy shot through him. This time, the sensation was stronger, almost overwhelming. It was as if the mark itself was alive, reacting to his touch. Jack gasped, stumbling back slightly. His mind raced, but before he could process what was happening, he felt his body tense, his muscles shifting in a way that was completely unfamiliar. For a moment, everything seemed to blur. The cave around him faded, and all he could focus on was the energy coursing through him. He could feel Lyra's presence, her energy mixing with his own in a way that was both terrifying and exhilarating. It was as though the two of them had become one, bound together by some ancient force neither of them understood. Suddenly, everything snapped back into focus. The cave was still there, the chill of the morning air creeping through the entrance. Jack staggered, his breath coming in quick gasps. He looked down at his arm again, expecting to see the mark glowing brighter, but instead, it had faded almost as if it had absorbed the energy it had been emitting. "What the hell was that?" Jack whispered to himself. He didn't understand what had just happened. His body felt different, like something had shifted within him, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Lyra let out a soft, reassuring growl from across the cave, her eyes watching him intently. Jack turned to face her, feeling both confused and awestruck. Whatever had just happened, it was only the beginning, and Jack knew deep down that his life had just changed forever. The day passed slowly for Jack. His mind kept returning to the strange mark on his arm, the glowing symbol that had appeared overnight. He couldn't explain it, and the more he tried to think about it, the more confused he became. The energy he had felt when touching the mark had been unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if it was connected to Lyra, the alien wolf-like creature who had somehow become a part of his life. Lyra, for her part, had remained calm and distant. She followed him as he explored the nearby area, silently keeping pace as he tried to gather supplies from the forest. Jack had always been a skilled explorer, but there was something different about being on this alien world. The trees, the plants, and the air itself felt unfamiliar. As if the planet itself was alive, watching him. They had found a small stream, and Jack knelt down to drink, the cool water refreshing after a long day of searching. Lyra drank from the water as well, dipping her head to the surface and lapping up the liquid. She didn't seem to need rest, her body strong and agile, while Jack, despite his human endurance, was beginning to feel worn down. The strange mark on his arm seemed to burn a little every time he moved, as if it was reminding him of its presence. That night, when they settled back in the cave, the bond between them felt stronger. Jack couldn't explain why, but he felt drawn to Lyra in a way that was becoming harder to ignore. She had saved him from the dangers of the planet, and now it Seemed she was becoming a part of his very being. There was an unspoken connection between them, a silent understanding that went beyond words. As the night grew darker, Jack lay on his bedroll, his mind racing. The mark on his arm was still there, though it had faded in intensity. He ran his fingers over it once more, feeling the strange warmth that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. It was as if it was alive, breathing with him, a part of him. Lyra was lying nearby, her large form curled up, her eyes closed in a peaceful sleep. Jack found himself staring at her, his mind filled with questions. What was she? How had she marked him? And why did he feel so connected to her, even though they came from two completely different worlds? The more Jack thought about it, the more questions he had. The planet was dangerous, and he had no idea how he was going to fix his ship or find a way back to Earth. But the longer he stayed with Lyra, the more he realized that his path forward might not be about returning home at all, was beginning to feel a strange pull toward her, something deeper than just survival. It was as if the universe had brought them together for a reason, and he couldn't deny the strange connection that was growing between them. Just as he was about to close his eyes and drift off to sleep, Jack felt something shift in the air. It was subtle, but it was there. A sudden chill filled the cave, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Lyra's ears twitched, and she slowly opened her eyes, her gaze locking with his. There was something different in her eyes now. Something almost knowing. Jack sat up, his senses on high alert. He wasn't sure what it was, but something was out there, something dangerous. Lyra stood up, her movements slow and calculated, as if she were preparing for something. Jack could hear the faint sounds of movement outside the cave, the rustle of leaves and the snap of branches. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just the usual wildlife. The air had changed, and the quiet had turned into something tense, something threatening. He reached for his blaster, the familiar weight of the weapon comforting in his hand. But Lyra growled softly, a low, warning sound that made Jack pause. She was no longer the docile creature he had first met. There was something fierce in her now, something wild. I don't know what's out there, Jack said, his voice barely a whisper, but we need to be ready. Lyra moved toward the entrance of the cave, her muscles tense. She sniffed the air, her head swiveling from side to side, as if she were searching for something. Her eyes narrowed, and Jack could see the protective instinct in her. She wasn't just a creature of this planet, she was its guardian, and she was ready to defend her territory. Jack followed her, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure what was coming, but he had learned quickly that this planet was full of dangers. He could only hope that Lyra's strength would be enough to protect them both. The growls and rustling outside grew louder, and Jack's grip tightened on his blaster. He peered out from the cave entrance, but the mist made it nearly impossible to see anything clearly. Suddenly there was a flash of movement, something fast and massive darting through the trees. It was too quick for Jack to get a clear shot, and before he could react, the creature was gone. Did you see that? Jack asked, his voice tense. Lyra growled again, a low guttural sound, and Jack knew she had seen it too. Whatever it was. It wasn't friendly. It had sensed them. Lyra moved out of the cave with surprising speed, Jack close behind. They made their way through the thick woods, keeping to the shadows. Jack couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread as they moved deeper into the forest. The air was thick with tension, and every sound seemed amplified, like the world was holding its breath. They came to a clearing, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. There in the center of the clearing was a massive creature. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Its body was a mix of organic and mechanical, like some sort of cybernetic predator. Its eyes glowed red, and its movements were quick and deliberate, as it seemed to search for its prey. Jack's heart raced. This was no ordinary predator. This was something engineered to hunt, and it was coming for them. Lyra let out a loud, commanding growl, and the creature stopped in its tracks. It turned toward them, its eyes narrowing, and for a moment Jack felt as though time had stopped. They were face to face with a deadly force, and they weren't alone. The massive creature stood in the clearing, its red eyes glowing with an eerie intensity. Jack's heart raced as he gripped his blaster tighter. The creature was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its body seemed to be a strange blend of living tissue and mechanical parts. It had sharp, jagged edges that glistened in the moonlight, and the faint hum of its machinery could be heard in the quiet of the forest. Lyra's growl rumbled deep in her chest, a warning to the predator, but Jack could see the hesitation in her movements. She wasn't just facing an ordinary wild animal. This was something dangerous, something artificial. Jack didn't know if Lyra had ever encountered a creature like this before, but he knew that if they didn't act quickly, they would both be in serious trouble. The creature took a step forward, its eyes fixed on Lyra. It moved with the precision of a hunter, its mechanical limbs worry as it adjusted its stance. Jack's breath caught in his throat as the creature's gaze shifted to him, its red eyes locking onto his with terrifying accuracy. There was no doubt in Jack's mind, no, it wasn't just hunting for food, it was hunting them. Lyra bared her teeth, her body lowering into a defensive stance. She wasn't backing down, and neither was Jack. His mind raced, trying to come up with a plan, but the only thing he could think of was survival. They couldn't outrun it, couldn't outfight it. They had to use what they had, whatever. Strange bond had been created between them. Jack reached out, his eyes meeting Lyra's. Without saying a word, he felt something shift between them. It was subtle, but undeniable. It was as if their fates had become intertwined in that moment. The energy from the mark on his arm seemed to respond, pulsing with power. Jack didn't know what it meant, but he could feel it. Whatever it was helping them. He could feel Lyra's strength growing, her body vibrating with energy. "Lyra, we have to fight together," Jack whispered, his voice low but urgent. "We can do this." The creature lunged, its massive mechanical claws slashing through the air with terrifying speed. But before it could strike, Lyra was already in motion. She moved like lightning, faster than Jack could follow. Her body twisted and leaped, her wolf-like agility allowing her to dodge the creature's strike with ease. She landed on the ground with a growl, her powerful legs springing her back into the fight. Jack raised his blaster. But before he could fire, the creature turned its attention back to him. Its mechanical limbs clicked as it advanced, its red eyes narrowing. The thing was fast, too fast for Jack to react in time. He raised his arm instinctively, but the creature was already too close. He braced for impact. Then, something unexpected happened. The mark on Jack's arm flared with a sudden burst of energy, and Jack felt an intense pull toward the creature. It was as if the mark was connecting him to it, drawing out something deep. Within him, without thinking, he thrust his hand forward, and to his surprise, a wave of energy shot out from his palm, slamming into the creature with a force that knocked it back. The creature staggered, its mechanical parts sparking as it tried. To regain its footing, Jack's eyes widened in disbelief. He had no idea what had just happened, but he could feel the power within him growing stronger. The mark on his arm was still glowing, its energy radiating through his body like a live wire. It was as if the bond between him and Lyra was amplifying his own strength, giving him powers he never thought possible. Lyra didn't hesitate. She charged again, her fangs bared, and this time the creature couldn't react fast enough. Lyra leaped onto its back, her claws digging into its mechanical frame. With a powerful twist of her body, she ripped through the creature's metal armor, exposing its internal components. Jack could see the sparks flying as the creature's mechanical parts began to malfunction. The creature screeched, trying to throw Lyra off, but she held on tight, her strength unstoppable. Jack could see the frustration and fear in its movements now. It wasn't invincible. It was just a machine, and Lyra was tearing through it with pure force. Jack took a deep breath, still trying to make sense of what was happening. He felt the energy from the mark surge through him again, and without thinking, he pushed his hand forward once more. This time, the energy that shot from him was stronger, more focused. The blast hit the creature square in the chest, and it let out a final screech before its systems overloaded and it fell to the ground. Sparking and smoking, the clearing fell silent, the only sound the crackling of the creature's broken parts. Lyra stood over it, her body heaving as she caught her breath. Jack stared at the creature, still in shock. He had just fought beside an alien wolf and survived. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. Something had changed. He could feel the bond between him and Lyra more strongly than ever before. And he knew that whatever had just happened, whatever power he had tapped into it, was only the beginning. Lyra turned toward him, her glowing eyes softening as she walked toward him. She nuzzled his hand gently, as if acknowledging their shared victory. Jack looked at her, a deep sense of gratitude swelling in his chest. She had saved him. Again, but this time he had helped her. Together, they had beaten an enemy that was far stronger than either of them alone. "What just happened?" Jack asked, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "How did I do that?" Lyra let out a soft, rumbling growl, as if to reassure him. He didn't have the answers, but she understood that something had shifted between them. Jack's bond with her was growing stronger by the minute, and whatever the mark on his arm meant, it was clear that it wasn't just a simple mark, it was a link. It's a key to something greater. Jack looked down at his arm, the mark now glowing faintly again. He could feel its energy calling to him, urging him to embrace whatever it was that had been awakened inside him. He didn't fully understand it yet, but he knew one thing for sure. He was no longer just a stranded human on an alien world. He was part of something much bigger. And whatever came next, he was ready to face it. The days that followed the battle were unlike any Jack had ever experienced. He felt different, stronger, sharper. The energy from the mark on his arm had not faded, but seemed to grow with each passing hour. He could feel it now, coursing through his veins, filling him with an unfamiliar power. It wasn't just physical strength. It was something deeper. It was as if every fiber of his being was connected to the alien world around him, and more specifically, to Lyra. Jack had been on this strange planet for what felt like weeks now. The crash of his ship, the unexpected encounter with Lyra, and the fierce battle with the mechanical creature had changed his life in ways he couldn't yet understand. But one thing was clear: he was no longer the same man who had crash-landed here. It was something different, something more. He sat near the entrance of their cave, staring out at the alien landscape. The sky above was dark, the stars unfamiliar and distant. The air was cool, and the strange glow from the plants around him provided an eerie light. But it wasn't the stars or the glow of the plants that caught Jack's attention. It was the feeling of power that seemed to radiate from his body. Jack flexed his fingers, watching as the strange mark on his arm pulsed, its glow now steady and warm. He didn't understand what it was, or why it was there, but he knew it was connected to Lyra, and perhaps to the planet itself. He had tried to ignore it, to push it away, but it wasn't something he could control. It was part of him now, just like the bond he shared with Lyra. Lyra was nearby, her sleek body resting on a bed of soft moss. Her eyes were closed, but Jack knew she was aware of him. She always seemed to know where he was, what he was doing. It was as if their minds were linked, connected by the strange bond that had formed between them. Jack had tried to speak to her about it, but words weren't necessary. She didn't speak in the way humans did, but Jack could sense her emotions, her thoughts, as clearly as if she had spoken them aloud. The mark on his arm flared again, and Jack closed his eyes, feeling the rush of energy that came with it. It was a power he didn't understand, but it was his to command. He focused, allowing the energy to rise within him, pushing it through his body. He could feel it working, shifting his muscles, enhancing his senses. His hearing sharpened, and his vision seemed to improve. He could hear the slightest rustle of the leaves in the trees outside, and the soft chirping of the strange creatures in the distance. He could even feel the ground beneath him vibrating ever so slightly, as if the planet itself was alive. It was incredible, but also terrifying. Jack wasn't sure what would happen if he pushed himself too far. He didn't know if this was temporary or permanent, if the power would eventually consume him.
Ow.
He had to learn how to control it, how to live with it. But before he could contemplate it further, a sudden noise broke his concentration. It was a low rumble, like thunder in the distance, but it wasn't the sound of a storm. Jack stood up, his body alert, the power from the mark on his arm still humming through him.
I rested at the same.
moment, her ears perked, her body tensing. They both looked toward the source of the noise, which was growing louder, closer. Jack's heart raced. He whispered, though he knew she could already sense it. She moved toward him, her muscles rippling as she prepared to defend herself. Jack didn't know what they were facing, but he could feel the danger approaching. The power within him surged again, stronger now, as if reacting to the threat. The mark on his arm burned with intensity, its glow brightening, and Jack could feel his connection to Lyra deepening. He reached out to her, his hand brushing against her fur, and for a brief moment, everything felt calm. The bond between them was undeniable now. It wasn't just a mark on his skin, it was a part of him, and Lyra was part of it too. Whatever this was, whatever had happened to him on this alien world, he and Lyra were in it together. Then the noise grew louder still, and Jack realized what was happening. It wasn't just one creature approaching, it was a whole pack of them. He could hear their growls, their footsteps pounding against the ground. Jack's pulse quickened. There was no time to think. They were being hunted. Lyra's growl echoed. Through the cave, deep and fierce, she moved toward the entrance, her body poised for action. Jack followed, his hand still gripping the blaster, though he knew it would be of little use against whatever was coming. The power inside him flared again, and this time he felt a surge of confidence, as though the energy within him was pushing him forward, urging him to act. The clearing outside was dark, the shadows of the trees stretching long across the ground. Jack could see movement through the mist-shadowy figures darting between the trees. They were fast, too fast for Jack to get a clear shot with his blaster. But they weren't the same mechanical creatures from before. These were living beings, and they were hunting Lyra. Lyra let out a loud, aggressive growl, and the pack of creatures stopped in their tracks, their glowing eyes locking onto her. There were 5 of them, all wolf-like in appearance, but with mechanical enhancements similar to the first creature they had fought. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. Their bodies were covered in armor-like plating. Jack could feel the power within him growing stronger, more intense. He wasn't sure what he was capable of, but he knew he couldn't stand by and let Lyra fight alone. The energy from the mark surged through his body, and without thinking, he raised his hand. A burst of energy shot from him, slamming into one of the creatures, sending it flying back into the trees. The others hesitated for a moment, their eyes wide with surprise. Jack's heart raced as the creatures regrouped, clearly recognizing him as a threat now. But Jack didn't back down. He was ready. Lyra charged forward, her body moving like lightning, and Jack followed, his newfound power guiding him. Together, they would face whatever came next. The clearing outside the cave was now filled with tension. Jack's breath came in sharp, quick bursts as he stood alongside Lyra, his pulse racing with the surge of energy from the strange mark on his arm. The pack of mechanical creatures before him growled low, their glowing eyes fixed on him and Lyra, sizing them up. Jack could feel the intensity of their gaze, the recognition that they were facing something far more powerful than they had expected. Lyra growled again, her body tense, and ready to spring into action. She had already proven her strength in battle, but Jack wasn't sure how much longer she could keep up with the pack. He could see the creature's eyes narrowing, preparing for a fight. It was clear they were no ordinary predators. They were part of something bigger, something more dangerous. Jack clenched his fists, the energy from the mark on his arm still pulsing through him. He had no idea what had happened to him, but he knew he wasn't the same person who had crash-landed on this planet. Whatever the bond with Lyra had done, whatever this power was, it had changed him. He could feel it in every muscle, every nerve. He was stronger now, faster, more aware of everything around him. And with Lyra by his side, he wasn't afraid anymore. Without warning, one of the creatures lunged forward, its claws slashing through the air. Lyra was faster, leaping to the side. And dodging the strike, she snarled, her fangs bared, and in one swift movement, she pounced on the creature's back, her claws sinking deep into its mechanical armor. Sparks flew as Lyra tore through the plating, the creature's screech filling the air. Jack watched in awe as Lyra fought, her strength and speed far beyond anything he had ever seen. But the fight wasn't over. The remaining creatures charged, their growls growing louder as they advanced. Jack knew they had to act fast. He couldn't let Lyra fight alone. Without thinking, he raised his hand again, feeling the mark flare to life. A wave of energy shot from his palm, knocking one of the creatures back. It crashed into a tree, its mechanical parts sparking and smoking as it crumpled to the ground. Jack didn't have time to process what had just happened. There was more to do. The pack regrouped, their eyes flashing with anger and fear. They were smart, more intelligent than Jack had expected. He circled, trying to find a weakness, a way to overwhelm them. Jack and Lyra stood side by side, their bond stronger than ever. They didn't need words. They were a team, connected in ways Jack still didn't understand, but that didn't matter. They would fight together, or they wouldn't survive at all. The next creature lunged at Lyra, its claws extended, but Jack was quicker this time. He raised his hand again, and the energy burst forth like a shockwave, knocking the creature off balance. It staggered, disoriented, but before it could recover, Lyra pounced, her powerful jaws closing around its neck. The creature let out a strangled cry before collapsing to the ground, its body twitching before going still. Jack breathed heavily, his body still thrumming with energy. The power within him felt endless, like a river that would never run dry. But there was no time to focus on that now. There were still creatures to defeat. The remaining two creatures circled, their eyes filled with fury. They were desperate now, no longer confident in their ability to take down Lyra and Jack. But Jack knew they weren't done yet. The creatures attacked at once, moving as one, their claws outstretched and their jaws snapping. Jack barely had time to react before the first creature was upon him. It lunged at him with surprising speed, and Jack instinctively raised his arm, the energy from the mark flaring once again. The energy crackled from his body like lightning, pushing the creature back with a force that sent it skidding across the ground. Lyra was already on the second creature, her body twisting and turning as she dodged its strikes. Than any human could hope to be, and with each move, she seemed to grow more powerful. Jack could feel the energy from the mark coursing through him, amplifying his strength. It was like a part of him had been unlocked, a power he never knew. He had the last creature let out a deafening screech and charged, but Jack wasn't afraid. He felt invincible now, connected to Lyra and to the strange power that flowed within him. He reached out with both hands, and this time the energy erupted from him in a massive wave, engulfing the creature in a bright, blinding light. The creature's body was thrown back by the force of the blast, its mechanical parts sparking and falling apart. It landed in a crumpled heap, motionless. Jack stood there, breathing heavily, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked around at the aftermath of the battle. 3 creatures lay defeated, their mechanical bodies smoking and sparking. Lyra stood nearby, her body still tense, her eyes scanning the area for any more threats. The bond between them felt stronger than ever, and Jack could feel the unspoken connection they shared. They had fought together, survived together, and in that moment, Jack knew that he wasn't alone anymore. Lyra walked toward him, her body moving with the grace and strength of a true predator. She nuzzled him gently, her glowing eyes softening. As she stood by his side, Jack reached out to her, his fingers brushing her fur. The bond between them was undeniable. And in that moment, Jack felt a deep sense of gratitude. Lyra had saved him, and he had saved her. Together, they were unstoppable. Jack didn't know what the future held. He didn't know if he would ever return to Earth, or if he would ever fully understand the power inside him. But for the first time since crash landing on this alien world, Jack felt at peace. He had found something here, something he hadn't known. He was searching for. Lyra was more than just a creature he had met in the wild. She was his companion, his partner. Together, they would face whatever came next. And whatever it was, Jack knew they would be ready.